hopefully get out of this session? Or any ahas from Monday, on any of the information that we covered, or are you thinking about your business a little differently after that? No? You guys are easy today? All right, cool. Well, then I think we're just going to jump into the material. Just a couple of things that I wanted to say at first is just reminding you guys that these Ignite sessions are 1 hour long. We're doing them 3 days a week, and there's a lot of content in these sessions. So we cover a ton of stuff really fast, but I want you to think about it like this. It's having a mastery level conversation around the content for that topic. So no matter how long you've been in business, whether you're new or whether you've got a team, if you're expanded around the country, we're having a mastery level conversation around the content that we're going to cover in every one of these sessions. And if you have anything to add where you've done something and it's worked for you, the more participation we have, the better. Also, with that being said, I talk fast for this hour and I kind of get going. So whatever you have to do, like wave your arms, turn your camera on, just interrupt me, whatever you need to do to get in. Believe if you raise your hand, I'll see you raise your hand. If you're there in the training room, it looks like we've got the first 3 rows in our view. Summer can wave, woohoo! I think that's Summer in there. I didn't really look with my glasses. Oh, are they not? Maybe they're not able to hear us. They may not hear us there. Are you guys all right? No? Yeah, we got to get their sound on first. Hopefully I didn't shut them off by muting the microphone. It might be, is anybody in the market center there with them in your office? Nick, are you in the office? No. I was gonna say, you might tell him it's probably on the computer screen where he unmutes it or turns the volume up. Summer, are you logging in on your phone? Can you hear us okay? In the training room? Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear us? Oh, bummer. God, I should be able to unmute everybody. Oh, no. There we go. Are you back in? We got you in?
Oh, because of the headache? That's... Oh.
No, but I think we have somebody else unmuted.
Oh, did you get it?
Oh, it's a little better.
Summer, can you hear us?
Okay, yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Now, wait a second. Whatever you just did, remember what you did. Well, actually, you're good. I'm just going to leave you unmuted. There's not any background noise and stuff going on now, so we're good. All right, cool. Let's get going, baby. All right, guys, mastery level content.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. I was just gonna, we couldn't turn him up. We couldn't figure out how to do the volume, but now we figured it out.
Now we might have some background noise. I might have to mute you guys out. Hopefully this doesn't shut off the microphone. There we go. Can you still hear us, Summer? Give me a thumbs up. All right, cool. We're good. You guys are muted and you can hear. Okay, guys, everything's layered. 30 years of selling real estate, 2,500 sales, but it's being plugged into this book since Gary wrote it 15, 20 years ago. I mean, I will tell you guys just a little background. When that book came out, it was the book that I read it multiple times and I started implementing those systems. I had already had a bunch of that stuff implemented. I don't even think I have one of my books sitting around here. Yeah. If you haven't gotten a copy of this yet, you need to come see me at the office anytime you're in, the E-Myth Real Estate Agent. Basically, guys, I had E-Myth my business, systematized my business. And when Gary came out with the MREA book, I had most of those systems in place. I just didn't know what to call them. Like, he totally gave everything a real estate title. So when I go through this content and material, like today, we're just lead generation, the core of your business. Okay, you've been to a ton of lead generation classes. what I'm hoping is that you're going to leave today's session of lead generation thinking about it totally different than you've ever thought about lead generation before. And it's all based on mostly experience. So that is the part where I do want to say, you know, for you guys in the training room, just raise your hand and wave your arms if you want me to unmute you, if you want to ask a question. But everybody else, just unmute and jump in if you have anything that you want to ask or add. So hopefully I just give you a little different perspective. Oh, yes. Let me see if you have a question. Oh, I probably can't unmute you manually. Yeah, it's not letting me unmute you manually. Darn it. Anyway, probably can do it from the screen where you can just click the keyboard to unmute yourself.
Amber. Good.
Yep. So now you guys are unmuted. Do you have a question, Summer?
Oh, I do. I thought it was about marketing today.
You what?
I thought the topic was marketing today.
Today's topic is spark number 2. It should be lead generation, the core of your business.
Oh,
I thought it was marketing.
what does your thing say?
We're
Ours all say
Ours says
marketing.
marketing.
Yeah, so for today on, you'll actually be good today. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, so you're going to be okay if you don't have the right manual printed out. However, the rest of them will start to get a little more detailed when we get into seller specific things, buyer specific things. So just know we're on Spark 2 right now. So Friday will be Spark 3, Monday will be Spark 4, Friday will be Spark 5, we'll go through Spark 9, and then we'll start over with Elements 1, Elements 2. So I will check. I wondered about the way the titles were listed in the graphic, if they were the right ones. They didn't seem to match up the title of the book.
Hi, Christy.
So if you've got this all in your calendar, you can just look in there, and even what I do on my calendar is put Spark 1 in Monday's date on my calendar, Spark 2 today, and we should go right up to family reunion. We'll end the Friday before everybody's leaving for family reunion.
Hey, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Julia gave us a calendar, like a list of each topic for each session. So is that list wrong that she gave us?
It might be.
Okay.
If you showed up with the wrong one and it's the second one on there, it may not be the right list to go off of for the class.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Yesterday we did elementary. Was that the correct one?
All right, I'm gonna mute you guys. Well, actually, we'll leave it like this for now. If there's not too much background noise, we'll go ahead and leave you guys unmuted so you can jump in. Okay, you guys, is my screen? Yeah, my screen's up on the deal. Okay, so it was kind of crazy too. Let me get here. All right, so this is Ignite. This is Spark 1. We're talking about the way Ignite is designed is the first 9 sessions are about growing your business, and it's growing it through lead generating for buyers, lead generating for sellers, listing appointments, getting the listing, like when you're at the listing appointment, getting the listing, making the buyer presentations and getting that buyer agency sign. And then obviously previewing real estate, which the way our class is, if this were a day-long class, we would take some time out, you'd make some calls, you'd do some presentations, you'd go view some real estate, things like that. So I know we're doing 3 hours in a week. So if tomorrow's your off day to run through some properties, preview some real estate, I will tell you, I previewed real estate when I first got into real estate, because when I first got my real estate license, thinking like, how in the heck would somebody ever know every single name of every single subdivision and know whether this was a $200,000 neighborhood or a $400,000 neighborhood? How would they know like what the subdivision names are and if they have a pool and all that stuff? So previewing properties actually helped me get to know the area a lot faster. And it was amazing how quickly that fell into place. And pretty soon I could tell you what side of town was what and where the neighborhoods were and what they were close to. The second part, when we switch into elements, that's about running the business, the actual systems and more details on marketing your listing, showing buyers houses. By the way, there's some really cool systems in there. If you've ever shown a buyer more than 3 houses, you're going to love the show buyer houses section. Usually, you know, we've heard through a lot of maps training, with the old Sean Kokoska way. It's like we never showed them more than 5 houses. And yeah, I'm probably at 3, an average of 3 houses, and get them to write a contract. Transaction management, all that stuff. So we cover all that stuff through Ignite. Today, we're talking about lead generating for buyers and sellers. I don't think this is going to be quite the conversation you may have thought it was, but I'm going to tell you the way to really grow your business big and fast. And then we'll still talk about probably a little bit of some of the ways you may be thinking we were going to talk about generating for buyers and sellers. So the lead generation model, the mastery level of understanding this whole funnel concept is the funnel is to capture the leads. Let me just say this first. Capture your leads or your contacts, get them into database like Command where you're cultivating them. And then after you cultivate them, they're going to turn into either an appointment, listing their house, writing a contract, whatever that might be. The cultivating part in the database is what will eventually convert them. Now, based on our conversation that we just had on Monday, I want to preface this whole funnel thing on a couple of things. First of all, 98% of the people that you meet today are not buying real estate. You don't capture to jump down to close. And our real estate industry has taught us to go look for the next deal, look for the next deal, look for the next deal. And the best way I can explain this is in the old days, when I got into real estate 30 years ago, it was door knocking. It was, farming neighborhoods. It was doing stuff like that to get business. And when we farmed a neighborhood, I mean, really, my first year in real estate, I used to mail postcards to a neighborhood to farm a neighborhood because I wanted to take over that neighborhood. And I would mail that postcard the first day, all excited about my program. Next month would roll around. I'd get my postcards printed up and I'd get them to the post office just in time to get them out a month later. The third month rolled around. It's like on mail day, I'm like, oh crap, my postcards. So I'd run around like a chicken with my head cut off for 48 hours, get my postcards put together, get down to the post office 3 days behind schedule, and I'd get them in the mailbox. I'm like, yes, all right. Month 4 would happen, and it's a week after mail day. I'm like, oh crap, my postcards to that neighborhood. This was just old school. I don't know if anybody can relate to this type of stuff now, if you guys even do any of this. But it's like, it's already a week late. I wasn't really getting anything from it anyway. I'm gonna stop. And I must have done that 3 or 4 times in my career before somebody said, why don't you just, I know you guys aren't following through on it. Why don't you print the whole 12 months postcards and have them all labeled and ready to go? It's the neighborhood, right? And how many people are going to move in that year, right? 500 homes, it might be 50 of them. So if some mail gets returned, it gets returned. So literally the first year that I printed all 12, had them sitting in my cubicle for an entire year, labeled for that neighborhood. Man, it was the 6th month. Boom, a listing call. 6th month. The next month, another listing call. Next month, another listing call. So what I can tell you about today, we're going to really harp on is consistent and persistent. I don't know if there's anybody that wants to share, maybe like from where you were maybe a year ago to where you are today, if you've gotten really consistent and persistent on capturing people's information, putting it in your database, and what that's done for your business. Is there anybody that's done that well that just wants to share anything on that? Like you're doing it better now than you did maybe a year ago, and you're seeing a big return on investment from your contacts that are in your database. Or is everybody still trying to figure out the magic pill yet?
Brad, I'll go. I actually kind of grasped onto that like my first ever year of real estate, like doing as much marketing as I could and then pulling those people into my database. And then it was year 2 that I saw the persistency of year 1 pay off. Cause like I didn't do that great my first year, but then second year I did 4.5 times the amount of business I did to year 1 because I was making my phone calls and putting people in as many times, a week as I could year 1.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't like your phone calls were always getting you listing appointments. You were just nurturing the relationship that you had from the previous year, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. Because all the ones that I was nurturing for year 1 are the ones that came back and listed or bought year 2.
Yeah, right. So guys, here's the thing on capture, and whether it's a lead or a contact, we'll talk about that, and cultivate. Capturing is about the filter I want you to put this through from this day forward is every single person you guys meet today forward, every single person you meet from today forward is going to buy or sell houses or move in the next 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. Every single person you meet. Now, if you're looking for real estate business because you really want to get some listings and get some buyers and write some contracts, it's only 1 or 2 out of the next 100 people you meet will be buying real estate right now, right? Remember we said if they're moving every 5 years and it's 100 people, that's 20 people moving over the next 12 months. Well, 20 divided by 12 is just a little bigger than 1. So it's 1 or 2 people know that they're moving at any given time out of 100 people. If you have 1,000 people, that's 100 to 200 people are moving in the next 12 months, which means you have somewhere between 8 to 12 or 13 people moving every single month out of 1,000 people. So the biggest difference here is like where we're looking at this slide where it says leads versus contacts. A lead is somebody that you're not really connected with, that you think of it like your traditional marketing. You're trying to come up with a good headline. You're trying to come up with a call to action that would get them to pick up the phone and call you. And there's a lot of lead generation tools in industry that are not generating leads. They're receiving. Well, I shouldn't say we're not lead generating when we're doing them. We're waiting for them to call us back. So we're really lead receiving. We're throwing something out there and letting them lead receive. And I don't know if you've heard the difference between lead generate and lead receive. So what I'm going to share with you is that if you took every single person from this day forward, realizing that 98 to 99% of them are not moving right now, which means it changes the whole focus on how your conversations go throughout the day and how you play the capture game. Because I may talk to 5 people today. An example might be if you go to the dog park, right? You go to the dog park and you're going around there. You're not just going to walk up to a total stranger and say, hey, by the way, I sell real estate. Are you thinking about buying or selling any real estate? You may not do that. Some of you might. And those people that do, great. I mean, you ask 98 people, 99 people or 100 people that question, you're going to get one of them say, yes, I am. What I see the biggest downfall is they don't keep the other 98 people that said, no, we're not in their database. They don't capture them and put them in and cultivate them. Like Nick was just saying, that next year, 20 of those people that you met this year are going to be closing on a house next year. 20 of the 100 people that you met last year are closing this year. And the biggest pain you can feel in real estate is if you actually did a mass mailing to everyone that's in your database and get return mail so it comes back to you if they're moved, is how many yellow stickers of death is what I call them. The yellow stickers of death you get back in the mail, stack of them. Those people moved without you. And so there's a lot of my personal research in my early days where, you know, before the MREA book was written, before anybody was talking about relationship marketing, I already knew if I had 20 yellow stickers come back, I was not cool with that. And I would spend a half a day researching that person, tracking them down online to figure out why they moved and why they didn't call me. And I thought they would just call me because we've talked a few times over the last year. And I mailed them stuff every once in a while or emailed them stuff, right? And I couldn't figure out why they would move without me. And the reality is most of the people that moved without me, I hadn't talked to in months, if not 6 months or a year, or they weren't on a drip plan. They weren't on a follow-up plan, or they were on an all email drip plan. Let me just make sure anybody have anything they want to jump in and ask. Take a breath every once in a while. So the thing on capture is, I'm telling you guys, the biggest secret I can share with you in real estate, when you hear me harp and harp and harp on, you can sell 100 properties in 12 months. You can sell more than that actually, but you can sell 100 properties in 1 year if you just focused on 5 people a day. Forget if they're buying or selling real estate. Just be you in the community, living where you're living, and capture people and put them in, say like Command, for example, capture them into your contact management system, set up a follow-up plan to just stay in touch with them. You don't even have to talk about real estate. 98% of them are not talking about real estate. I mean, you can talk about real estate once in a while. You want to plant that seed maybe once a quarter or something like that. But it doesn't have to all be about real estate. It can be about the community. It can be about you. It can be about anything. And most importantly, that follow-up is going to be the phone calls, actually picking up the phone and letting them hear your voice at least a few times a year. I mean, the magic number I heard was 4, no less than 4 times a year. Every single person you meet from this day forward hears your voice.
Where you going?
Signed document.
Okay. So when you guys are doing this, I might add 5 people today and they're not doing anything, and their call is going to come up in 4 weeks, for example, on an 8x8. And I'm going to get another call in 8 weeks. And where agents kind of struggle is between this lead and contacts, right? Because leads are internet leads, people looking for buying, selling real estate. They're going to open houses, whatever. If we're door knocking, we're looking for the person that's moving. That's one thing, but the contacts aren't necessarily moving right now. So it's like, well, what do I say on week 4? I don't want to say, you know, my normal script of, hey, it's Brad Korn with Keller Williams, just checking in again, see if there's anything. No, you got to separate the two. The contacts are just people in your community that you're just calling and being you. You know, hey, it's been a few weeks since we connected. I was thinking of you again today and just wanted to call and see how you're doing. Hey, we're doing great. Same as we were 4 weeks ago. Awesome. Well, I didn't have anything important to say. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking of you. Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, by the way, thanks for sending that note. Hey, you bet. You know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we do for our conversations, because we know that they're moving sometime in the next 5 to 7 to 10 years. So I'm just going to stay in touch with them. And what you do with the cultivating part, we'll talk about in a little bit, is mind share and branding. Okay. So the big picture is just understanding that every single person that you come in contact with from today forward is actually who you need to capture and get in your database. And then you'll cultivate them to eventually get the bottom row. And that's only going to be 1% on any given month, 1 to 2% on any given month, or 20% a year if they're moving every 5 years. Does that make sense? I mean, does anybody have any questions about that or struggling with that a little bit?
I do.
Right. So, yeah.
Okay, so what's your advice, I guess, on, so like, let's say you were just randomly out in public and you met somebody new, like at the dog park or whatever. How do you smoothly transition somebody from, oh, I just randomly met you, to now I'm gonna start emailing you, to not make it awkward, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
so-
I don't know you, but I'm gonna add you on my email plan.
So I'm not sure if I caught it all. There's a little bit of an echo, but you're talking about when you connect with somebody, how do you start emailing them a bunch of stuff when it may not be a great connection?
Yeah, like if you just randomly meet somebody, how to smoothly transition into that.
Yeah, so no, great question. So again, the one thing that I've talked a lot about is that master list notebook, where in that particular case, if I could put this to reality, is that person, if I had an email and we had a 2-way conversation by email, or I met somebody, but I really don't know their address and I don't know if I connected enough, like to really get their information, we just had a good conversation, that name would go in my master list book. Like if I didn't have a conversation around getting their address or their phone number. And actually, let me pause out there, because the conversations I'm talking about that you're having with people every day shouldn't even get to the point where you're like, hey, so this was a cool conversation. Can I have your address and phone number and let's keep in touch? That sounds weird. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? I mean, if you can pull that off with the person you're talking to and you know they're going to give it to you, by all means, get it, right? But that is not going to work for every single person you meet today. So the mindset is that when we're playing this real estate game, we got real estate agent and we've got prospecting mastery level community plugging in person. And along with this is going to come the real estate business, right? Because they're eventually going to move. And right now, from the very beginning, we're not branded. We're not branded as a real estate agent. And maybe they know you sell real estate, but we're not branded in their head that if somebody said real estate, they would say your name just without even thinking about it. So that's what the 8x8 and the 33 touch does. It brands us so that when somebody says real estate and they haven't talked to you for a week, they're like, oh my gosh, you got to call Summer. She's in real estate. She knows what's going on. So we got to get from here to there first to be the person they trust and that we know has the confidence of real estate questions. So there's a lot of people you may meet that get the name in the master notebook, but you haven't really connected yet, or you don't have a phone number, or you don't have an address, but now you captured the number. If I just thought through every single day who I came across, Mike at the grocery store, Jim Bob from school, whatever, and then I'm going to go back in. So I met them in my normal day, but I was not quite mastery level on turning that conversation into a real true capture at that moment. The capture at that moment is getting a phone number and an address, right? And it's not that I'm going to ask them for that directly. If I met Jim Bob or whatever out in the public, I didn't get that information. He goes in my notebook no matter what. Then when I'm working on my master list and I go Jim Bob, and now I can go up and I can pull up the tax records, look on Facebook, and start searching around tax records. Oh, there's Jim Bob. I got his address, right? So I'll get his address in there. I'll go to fastpeoplesearch.com, type in his name and his city, and up pops all the phone numbers that he's at. Or what you're going to find most of the people, you search in your phone and you find them. Guys, I've gone through my cell phone, and you know, how many of you have numbers in your contact list that are just a phone number, no name, right? I will literally sit for an hour and just type phone numbers in the reverse search on fastpeoplesearch.com. And up will pop a name, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then I tag them, put them in my phone. Now I've got them in my phone. In my master list, now I've got their phone number. So now that I have the phone number and the name, I go look in the tax record. Sure enough, there's their address. They've been there for 5 years. So I add the address to my phone book. Now I pick up the phone and call Jim Bob. And I'm like, could be a few days later or whenever I got to him in my notebook. Yo, Jim Bob, Brad Korn, what's up, man? I haven't talked to you in a while. How's everything going? Oh, it's good, good. Guys, great bumping into you last week or whenever it was, right? Just checking in, see how life's treating you. So now I've moved him, cross him out of my notebook and add him to command, for example. I captured him, and now he goes on a cultivation system that will eventually lead to an appointment or a closing someday. So the difference here was capturing everybody, just being aware of that on the front end. Now, when you do it exactly like I explained it, Summer, pretty soon you're going to start having conversations like, well, Jim Bob, you still in the same, you live around here? Do you own a house? It's like, oh yeah, I live, because I've started a conversation and I'm just kind of slyly working it in to say, what side of town do you live on? I'm on the north side. Oh, really? Where are you at? It's like XYZ Street. It's like, oh yeah, I know that subdivision. Yeah, I've been selling real estate. I sold a house close to that one, a month ago or whatever. If that's what I could say. If I haven't sold anything, I wouldn't say anything. It's like, yeah, I know that subdivision. I go out and tour properties every so often, and I've been by that neighborhood several times. It's a nice area. Oh yeah, we love it there, right? That's it. I don't need to switch to another script of, so by the way, have you thought about buying or selling lately? I wouldn't have to, because if that happened right there like that, he'd be like, oh, really? You've been by there? So you know where that neighborhood is. We're actually thinking about selling next month. Well, that's why we're meeting today then. You guys see what I'm saying? So you're going to get really masterful at your conversations. And another rule I'll give you on capture is I will spend up to 5 minutes for an individual, 5 minutes of time. And I say this because it's a long time when you're sitting with a name on a piece of paper, spending 5 minutes trying to dig up an address and a phone number from somewhere when you should be lead generating. Well, that's what you're doing. You're finding out their address and their phone number so you can get them captured, get them in on a cultivation system that's going to churn 6 to 8 times more business. Yeah. Got something else to add? Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, and don't worry about it if you forgot it or messed it up. It's kind of like when I always talk about writing handwritten notes. If you can drop a note in the mail from the first time you connect with somebody, which means you need their address, right? So if I'm so focused on my 5 a day that I kind of do it with everybody naturally, and I'm just naturally figuring out, how do I get this person a note? How do I get this person a note? Because I know if I meet them and I don't write the note and I don't put them in the database and I can't mail them the note to start the campaign, then they're going in my database as an all email drip plan, and that doesn't turn into anything. It's about a 1 to 2% conversion rate. I mean, if anybody's going to break the code, it's going to be Nick. Nick's going to give us all the secret on getting 50% conversion from internet leads when he gets done with all this, right, Nick? It's it is 1 to 2% conversion forever for the rest of your life. Let me say one more thing and I'll pause out if you have a question. So in the old days when we did all this stuff, I'm talking 30 years ago, 25 years ago, there wasn't contact management systems. There was no conversations around relationship marketing and drip plans. None of that stuff existed. We marketed with marketing materials for stuff. Back in 1995, when I moved back to Kansas City from the Twin Cities, and I showed up here in Kansas City, there's probably 5,000, 10,000 agents. The top agent, like the shiznit of Kansas City was selling $40 million in real estate. $40 million in real estate. Guys, $40 million in real estate. I mean, that's like a third to a quarter to a half of market centers are doing 30 and $40 million in real estate. Maybe not so much in our market center, but now I want to know the number. But we're talking top agent. So if you were selling 10 or 20 million, you were in the top 20%. Today, agents are selling 1,000 properties, not 40 or 50 properties, because we've tapped into the power of the relationships and the drips. And I'm telling you, the agents that are making $1 million in real estate are literally on the phone cultivating. Their lead generation time is cultivation time. They're just making their follow-up calls for 4 hours a day. I mean, you can come meet one of them in Overland Park. Come meet him and you can see him. He's on the phone 4 hours a day, just doing his follow-up calls, and he's calling every client 4 times a year, and he's staying in touch with everybody. He has 11 Lamborghinis. 11 Lamborghinis. The kid's like probably most of your guys' age. It's crazy, but he's just on the phone for 4 hours a day, and his team makes sure he's on the phone 4 hours a day. So the point is that now with relationship marketing and really capturing everybody, knowing that everybody's moving, that now you can capture 100% of the market share over the next 5 to 10 years versus trying to catch them on the day they might be doing something, forgetting about the 98 or 99% to look for the next one, forgetting about that 98% to look for the next one. Because guys, that marketing, for every 100 people, you get 1 or 2 appointments and you don't do anything with the other 98, or let me say this, you don't do anything with all of the 98. Within 2 months of doing that, if I did 100 contacts a month and I did that for 2 months, I've got 192 people that are not on anything. And I put all this effort to get these 100 people in touch with them somehow, some way. I got 2 appointments. Well, next month, I just got to go find another 100 and put all that effort in, when you could have just taken the 98 that weren't doing anything now and not hammered them with real estate stuff, and they would all end up doing something later on. So Gary knows this plan. Gary wrote the book, and a lot of this is based on Gary's box. What Gary has told us before, he's like, if I can get every single agent in this company to put 6,000 relationships in their database, relationships. If every agent would plug into their community, put 6,000 agents in or relationships in their community over a 5-year period, there will be no competition. You will have a recession-proof business. What that looks like, 6,000 people sounds like a lot. I don't know if I want 6,000 friends. No, we want 6,000 relationships that when they think of real estate, they think of you, right? If you did 5 a day, if you were consistent enough to just look now at 5 connections today, 5 connections tomorrow, forget about whether it's real estate or not, but you're going to now stay in touch with them and they're in your community. We know they're going to move in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So if I did 5 a day, 5 days a week, 25 people a week, 100 people a month, 1,200 people a year, that was my real estate core business, right? In 5 years, 1,200 times 5 is 6,000 people. 6,000 relationships at 5 a day, right? And then keeping in touch with it. So like, even imagine 6,000 people divided by 4, spread out through your calendar, is never going to be 20 calls a day. It's just not even going to get there. And if you had 6,000 people in your database that you had relationships with, that you stayed in touch with every single year, they hear your voice multiple times throughout the year. That's 600 to 1,200 of them will be moving every single 12 months for the rest of your life. Because 600 to 1,200, if they move this year, right, the next 600 to 1,200 will move next year. Once we get through them all, the first 600 to 1,200 are moving again. The next second ones are moving again. The third ones are moving again. You would have 600 to 1,200 transactions a year, every year for the rest of your career. So, and the good news is you get to build up to it. You don't just dump 6,000 people in your database and expect to be doing 120 deals a year. It's not going to happen, or 1,200 deals a year. So you just start 5 a day, every day, and you stay consistent with it until the end of time. Let me pause there and see if anybody's having any, oh, you know, we call them drunk monkeys, or how the heck would I even start with 5 a day, or any of that stuff going on? Or is this really sound as simple as it sounds and I just need to stay consistent? Yeah.
I had a quick question, Brad. From what you were describing, you don't put a contact in your database unless you have their address and phone number?
That is my filter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have a couple different databases, and I'll have a haven't met database and a met database. In fact, let me put it to you this way. There's a lot of lead source things out there that you can get on. And I don't know how many of you are buying leads from this or that. There's like Boomtown. There's some other things like that that are out there. I haven't heard much about Boomtown lately, but there's other sources out there. I would treat those as my haven't met databases. But haven't met, I'll give you an example, and it's in the book if you haven't read that chapter yet on our database. Databases is what it was on. I think it's like chapter 6 or 8 or something. But I did Boomtown, and Boomtown cost me $2,400 a month. But we got 1,000 internet leads in the first year, right? So we were getting basically 100 leads a month out of Boomtown. I was paying $2,400 a month for it. So we had 1,000 leads in 1 year. I went back, listen how painful this is. This is how I know these numbers. I went back through every single name and I looked in my database to see how many of them made it in the database, right? In our database, that when we get your address and phone number, you go in this database and we start the drip plan, the 8x8, the 33 touch, and we close business from there. That's the cultivation database. So this one wasn't really cultivating, but they sold it like, you know, it's got a button for you to call and then this button for the lender to call. Well, I had to go to the website and log in and see who my buttons were to call. And if there were 20 buttons one day, I probably wouldn't make 20 calls just because the buttons were there. And then when it would switch over to the lender, I would call the lender, you know, and say, hey, did you make these calls? No, I haven't got to those yet. It's like nobody was doing anything with them. But the reality was, out of those 1,000 leads, we got 100 of them into the database. Of the 100 that got into the database, we closed 24 of them. So this was just in 1 year. Again, talk about 20%, right? So out of the 100 that made it in, we got 25% of them closed. We had 24 closed deals. In that 24 closed deals, my buyer's agent made $48,000. I made $48,000 on the 50-50 split at the time from those leads because we were paying $2,400 for them and all that other stuff. But I made $48,000. I said $4,800. It's $48,000 to my buyer's agent. They got 50%. Out of the $48,000 I got, I paid $24,000 over that year for those leads. So I netted $24,000. Now, guys, here's a business teaching moment. I spent $24,000 for the year. I made $24,000. My buyer's agent made $48,000. I did not lose money. I got my $24,000 back and I made $24,000. But I tell you what made me sick was the 900 people that weren't in my database yet. And it was only 24 closings. So my brain was, and I could say, and my buyer's agent made $48,000 and I made 24. That's wrong. I'm the one who took all the risk, writing the check, right? So the next year I said, hey, here's the deal. This is pretty cool. I like the study so far. I didn't lose money. But if I'm going to pay $24,000 a year for this, here's what we need. I need 300 people out of this next 1,000 in the database. And that means we should get 75 of them closed this year out of the database, right? So guys, think about the numbers here. How much my buyer's agents would have made 150,000, but I would have made 75. I'll write $24,000 check every year for $75,000 profit. I'll sign a 10-year contract, and I don't care if they're making 150. But man, if I have one off year and I'm paying 24,000 to make 24, that's scary. So there's Gary's conversation. If you want to put mastery terms into on your ROI, you want to look for things that are 5 to 10 times return ROI, not 2 to 3 times. 2 to 3 times can keep your money tied up. I mean, think about what you can do with $2,400 a month in marketing. That I had it tied up for 24 deals that year to make $24,000 profit. So by reinvesting that money in a different way, I could make 5 or 10 times return. So anyway, that's actually in the book. I tracked those numbers and I tracked them close and learned a lot from that. And it's why I don't buy leads. The only reason I even signed up for that, one of my coaching clients at MAPS drugged me over to that booth and made them give me a zip code because she thought it was the most awesome thing ever. But I knew all she was doing was doubling or tripling her money, which was good. She wasn't losing money, and it fed her buyer's agents, which is the value proposition that she brought up. So it wasn't a bad thing, and I didn't lose money. It just wasn't a 5 to 10 times return. Does that make sense? So let me pause there. Does anybody have any questions based on that? Or did I answer? I don't even know if I answered the question that you asked.
You answered it and then even over that. So I appreciate you going so in depth. So you keep, you have a med database that you keep in touch with people. And then once you get name, phone number, email address, then they move over into the Met database.
You got it. So
Okay.
like Command is your Met database. Actually, Command is a little bit of both because guys, right now, if you took the Habit Met database and put them in there and all you have is their email, I mean, that neighborhood alert thing that you can just put people on that just sends them information about their neighborhood is not a bad drip tool. Just know that with just an email in there, they're a 1% conversion rate at best, 1 to 2% conversion rate. When you move them over with a phone number and an address, and or you pull them out of your master list and put them in Command because you have their address and their phone number, you picked up the phone and called them, you're still living on XYZ Street, great. Well, it's so great connecting with you. And then I write them a handwritten note and I put them in Command and cross them out of my master list notebook. That's where you're going to get a 12 to 2 return. And if you just run the math on 50 to 1, 12 to 2, this is 12 to 2 is 6 to 8 times more business. Here's the crazy thing. If you just focused on every name that's in the database and got connected with them and wrote them a handwritten note and really connected and moved them over to an 8x8, you can get 6 to 8 times more business from the same exact list that's already sitting in your database. That's the crazy, crazy, crazy thing to think about. And it kind of brings me to this slide right here, because it is prospecting versus marketing, prospecting base versus marketing enhanced. Anytime you look at marketing, I was talking about this earlier, it's very money intensive. Yeah, it's passive though. You're waiting for them to call you. It's like, who's going to get a postcard in the mail that says, if your kids are going to grade school and you wanted a different school for them, you should call me today. And they get it on that day and go, yeah, I mean, it's like, what is that call to action that's really going to get most of the people in the neighborhood to call you and list their house? So it's more long-term results, and you have to do it consistently, persistently over a long period of time. Takes money. The other one, yes, it's time intensive. I told you I spend 5 minutes on one name on a piece of paper, and I trust, you trust me is what I should say. It's going to be the most painful 5 minutes you spend. You're going to be sitting there going, I can't believe I'm sitting here taking this much time. I need to get my business rolling. And you're going to jump off of that and go find a list somewhere and throw some flyers around the neighborhood. Guys, that 5 minutes and knowing that person inside and out, going through their Facebook, seeing if they have kids, dogs, whatever, when I'm connecting and really connecting with them. The key is I stay in touch with them consistently and persistently from that day forward, at least for 10 years. Well, it's forever. But in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, they're going to call me and we're going to get their business because we stayed in touch with them. So that is time intensive, and it's being proactive from the point of knowing that everyone's going to move. You might as well just get them all in there now versus hoping that you call them in one of your 100 a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. So it says immediate results on prospecting. You are going to find, like anybody you're talking to, if they're thinking about real estate, they're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you called us today. We are thinking about moving. That's what they mean by immediate results. But building your relationship over time is kind of like getting married. It takes a few dates before you realize this is somebody you want to live with. You've got to like be top of mind when they think of it. So actually, I'm going to say one other thing about this prospecting marketing, the top of mind awareness. I don't know if I've done it with everybody on here yet, but we're going to play a quick game. So I'm going to need 3 people to unmute themselves. And I'm going to just ask for names. So Nick and Demetrius, I know you both can unmute and your good backgrounds. And we're going to pick, how about Dan Allen, one of our new guys? If you can unmute and don't have background noise, great. If you don't, I'll pick somebody else. If you don't unmute here in a second, I don't know where you're sitting at. And if he doesn't unmute, there he goes. You're going to play.
Hear me?
You ready to play, Dan?
Yeah, I'm ready to play. Let's do
All right,
it.
cool. So I'm going to show you guys something absolutely amazing that really struck for me why the relationships and the prospecting part of just adding everybody is so important. It's about brand awareness. It is about marketing. Wherever they are, when they decide to move, you have to be the first person they think of. So I'm going to play a branding game. I'm going to give you guys a product. Now, only the person I pick is playing. Everybody else is going to play along and write down or say your own things to yourself. I'm going to give you a product and you're going to list off as many brands as you can think of as fast as you can. Just whatever comes to top of mind. So I'll start with you, Dan, and I'm going to give you an easy one. It's tennis shoes. Give me as many brands as you can think of.
Okay, we got Nike, New Balance,
Okay,
Adidas.
no, that's good. You did good. You did good. All right, we'll see how Nick does here. Nick's next. I'm going to give you potato chips.
Oh gosh. Doritos, Lay's, shit.
Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah.
Okay, now Demetrius is nervous. She's got to take the boys out here. All right.
Do it.
No, there is no right or wrong in this game. This is another easy one. Toothpaste. As many brands as you can think of.
Crest, Colgate. No, that's a dish soap. I was gonna say Palmolive, but I think that's a dish soap.
All right, guys, what you just experienced was NAR statistics. 78% of all sellers talk to one agent and they list their house. 18% talk to 2. If you add that up, that's over 90-something% talk to 1 or 2 agents and list their house, and 78% it's 1, right? That is the Nike, the Lay's, and the Crest. Actually, I love this because I've been doing this example lately. Doritos is taking over Lay's, man. But how many people on the call, you said Lay's, right? Lay's was the first thing you thought of. But again, you have to be 1 or 2 to get a 90% chance at the listing. And you actually have to be number 1 to make sure you have the 78% chance. You might not get a second chance. So that also being said is if you go on 4 listing appointments, you should get 3 of them, right? If you're not getting 3 out of 4 listing appointments, then you might not be showing your value when you were there because you were the first person they thought of, or you drummed up the appointment, right? But so coming back to that, you have to be the Nike, the Lay's, and the Crest when they think of real estate. The way to do that is knowing that they're not buying or selling right now, just stay in touch with them, because everything that follows that first note has got your little logo on it. I mean, they see Keller Williams signs around. If you got a brand for your own real estate team, they see your name, they know it's real estate stuff. It doesn't matter if they ever read a letter, ever look at your email. All they need to see is that brand at the first thing, and they're rebranding your name with real estate, so that when they get ready to do it, 78% of the time, oh, I know exactly who I need to call. Does that make sense? So that's what we're doing with our drip campaign. Totally different than what you may have thought before. It's not about getting them to list their property. And I love Gary Keller uses an example. He's like, I can't make anybody sell their house. They're not going to sell their house till they're ready to sell their house. But I can't just convince them that they need to sell their house. Now, I probably could. and I know some of you probably think, yeah, I could convince somebody to sell their house, right? But the truth is, you're not going to make anybody sell their house with anything that you send them. Where you guys will make the most appointments and the most conversions from cultivation to the other part of that let's see where we are here. There we go. To appointment, to under contract, to close, to active is going to be in the phone calls when you're talking to them and they're talking about, yeah, my garage. I just spent the entire weekend cleaning out the garage. We filled up a dumpster. It's like, are you outgrowing your house? It's like, oh, I kind of am outgrowing my house. It's like, well, have you guys ever thought about buying a bigger, better house in a better neighborhood that's appreciating more? It's like, well, I hadn't until now. So that's where you start laying these seeds and you're just having general conversations. But that one was real estate related when it presented itself. It's not that I'm calling all the time doing that. So again, we're not really getting into detail on command here. I know some people are using different databases, but what you want is a contact management system. And what I hope you would probably take away from today is that you start feeding stuff into like command, whether you don't use command, maybe use it as your Haven't Met database where you can dump an email in there and put them on a neighborhood alert thing and just leave them alone, right? And then have them in whatever else you're doing. But if it is your database that you're using, let's start moving everybody out of your master list into there 5 a day. Do you remember when I said 5 a day, 25 a week, 100 a month, 1,200 in a year? So 1,200 this year, if that's your focus, and this goes back to exactly what Nick said, you're going to be 6 months in where 600 of the people that you've added, you just met 100 of them in the last month. They haven't heard from you before until just last month. There's another 100, the 500 group hadn't heard from you before then either. And now they've only heard from you twice in the last 2 months because you're call number 8 of your 8x8's coming up. The other people, you've only got 300 or 400 people in there that have heard from you a few times. And it was your initial conversation, your second call of your 8x8, your third call of your 8x8, the 8-week call. The next one's not for 3 months. So it could be 1 year of getting 1,200 connections into the database with 1,200 notes written, because now you have their address so you can send the note. That next year, you've got an opportunity for 120 to 240 transactions. And you only have to capture some of them to either add 50 sales, add 100 sales to your business. But you got to get the 1,200 in this year to be able to capitalize on it next year. By next year, the first 1,200 people will have heard from you at least 3, 4, or 5 times. Well, now we go back to old marketing tactics that whenever somebody makes a big purchase, they do their research or they visit it 6 or 7 times. They come back and look at it more than one time. That's what that branding is. So in command, it's going to put everything in there. If all you did, don't worry about command too much. If all you figure out over the next month is how to add people in with their name, their address, their phone number, and okay, you're probably going to have their email too, but I want the other 2 in there for you. I want you to have those in there. That if you can add 5 people a day for the next month, believe me, command is going to be like so much easier to use. If you never use it because it doesn't work and all we're talking about doing is adding people, don't worry about them not being on a plan. Don't worry about what you get them in or what plan you got them on, or if you're sending them on the neighborhood search. Just for 1 month, just sacrifice 100 contacts to just be, I'm going to put 100 people in this month and I'm going to do it 5 a day. Because if I use it every day, then I'm going to start being like, oh, every time you're in there, you're going to be like, oh, what's that button do? Oh, what's that button do? Oh, cool. Look at that. And using it every day, you're going to end up becoming a master at it. So in that leads versus contacts, they talk about leads being you have a valid contact and information. Maybe it's even an email and you're having these one-way conversations where you're asking for permission. That's what a lead really is. The contact allows you to have that 2-way conversation. And even though the 2-way conversation may be short, they still might be a lead if it's short. How much is that house? 240,000. Click. Was that what you were looking for? Hello? 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 That's still a lead. You didn't really get a 2-way conversation going, even though they responded. So that's the difference between, and when they did the research on this branding, 8x8 and 33 touch, the 19 touches is better than once a month, right? So it's better than once a month, but it's got some personal touches in there. And that's somebody that you don't really know yet or haven't connected with. The goal is to get into a 2-way conversation with your leads So you can write them a note, masterfully get their address, whether you can pull it up on a website and go, hey, are you on XYZ Street? If you're having a good two-way conversation, and this is what a lot of people say, it's like, if I say XYZ Street and they're like, what are you, like a creeper or something? See, that's you on your side because you pulled it up on a website. They don't even know if you guys talked about their address in the previous part of the conversation, unless you're really not having a two-way conversation. You're having a one-way conversation where you're doing most of the talking, right? Or they're doing a one-way conversation trying to get you off the phone, yelling at you. So when you connect with somebody and you said XYZ Street, they'd be like, they don't question it. They're just like, yeah, we actually are still there. Or no, we moved from that house years ago. Oh, really? Where'd you move to? I mean, you're already in conversation with them. So that's the people that you're going to meet every single day like that. So in Command, there's, getting your contacts in, you can do all this stuff where you're custom tagging them. I'm going to say right now, add 5 a day. Make that your goal, whatever your database is, your contact management system. Once you get the habit for 30 days of doing 5 a day, the next month where you're adding 5 in, you're going to be like calling Brad going, all right, I've been adding 5 a day. Now I got 100 people in there. Nothing's happening. I need to really get this stuff working. What do I need to do next? Yep. That, and you didn't even need to know what to do next until you were doing 5 a day. It's irrelevant. You don't need content. You don't need drip pieces. You don't need any of that stuff until you're actually feeding in 5 a day. So I will tell you, me personally, I went 6 months. I'm slower than most of you. I added for 6 months with no plans running, but I knew I had to get the plans running in the 6th month because now I had 600 people in there and I had the phone calls popping up, but I didn't have any follow-up content going. That didn't matter. But it did matter because the next 6 months when I got the plans running and had more drip and more branding, I put $50,000 extra in my bank account. Today, that's probably 100 grand for you guys. So every day that you don't add 5 a day is probably costing you 200 grand a year, at least 100 grand a year, at least. So, without getting into the details on Command, and then I'll pause and ask if you guys have any questions, but you can custom tag people. You can have all these like special like smart views set up, all these interactions, all this stuff. And I'm blowing through this on purpose because you don't even need to know what color to tag them, what tag to put on them, what smart thing to put them on until you're adding 5 a day. It is irrelevant if I can keep it as simple as that. And here's one thing I'll promise you. If you go a month and you put 100 people in, even if you go 2 months or 3 months and you're up to 300 people in, guys, we can clean up 300 contact records pretty easy with figuring out what color to put them on. I mean, you can do that in a couple of days just by opening them all back up and getting them cleaned up. But until you're putting them in, you don't even need to know what all that stuff is, and you might not even ever use it. I don't use 90%. I don't use 95% of my database. I put people in and I start a campaign, and the rest of the database is foreign to me. That's the most important thing. I go to the task list every day and do what it says to do. So your sales pipeline, really, if you can think, everybody you meet from this day forward, you get them in on a cultivation. It doesn't have to be an all real estate cultivation. It can be 4 things a year about the community, 4 things a year about you, 4 things about real estate. If you're going to send an email out 4 times a year, have it linked back to your website. And it could be something silly like, hey, ever wonder how much your neighbor sold their house for? Click here. And it just takes them to your website and they put in an address and do a search, right? Or what they'll do is if they do that and they can't find it, guess what they'll do? They'll call you. Hey, you sent me this thing. It said about wondering what my neighbor's house sold for. I couldn't find it. Exactly. That's what you got it for. So those things are actually driving business back to you to eventually get to 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is closing. Okay. So I'm going to give you a freebie here as we wrap this up. If you have a database of people or a list of people and you have any kind of a question about how would I go about just starting this, like just picking up the phone and calling them out of the blue and start this, because your brain's going to want to switch like right back to, you'll have this Demetrius with Keller Williams just calling to check in, see how things are going. I haven't talked to you in a while. No, how do you do it? I put a reconnect. It's actually under database cleanup, and cleanup is one word. So if you go into Command and go into the library and search the library for database or cleanup, there's going to be 2 that pop up, and one of them's the one that I put in there. And you can download that into your command, and it will have 5 or 6 steps. The first step, it says, check the record to see if I have their address and phone number. And then a day or 2 later, it's got the content in there to just copy and paste into a Word document and print out that letter. And you're only going to do this on 5 people a day. So follow me through this. You copy and paste, and it says, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm going to give you a call in a few days, see how you're doing. And then it will pop up 3 days later, mail time, or maybe it's 4 days later because the mail's been a little slower. And it'll pop up in your task list to call that person that day. And then it's going to pop up a to-do in the task list also on the 4th day that says, did you send them a handwritten note? And then the last item is going to say, start them on another plan. I don't care if you have the other plan in place or not. We can worry about that later. But if you downloaded this and you went through command, for example, and put the first 5 people starting today, and then the next 5 people starting tomorrow, and the next 5 people starting 3 days from now, and you do that all the way to Z, what you're doing is you're putting yourself on a consistent, persistent machine to reconnect with everyone in your database. And the reality is, if you start looking at it, you're not going to remember who 60% of these names are. You're going to be like, who is that? Doesn't matter. Put this plan on them. When the pop-up comes up, do I have their address and phone number? You're going to do a little research. You find a picture of them on Facebook and go, oh gosh, that was that guy from the Halloween party 2 years ago. He was kind of fun, right? So he's in there, but nothing's been happening with him. So, and the other part that I'm going to tell you, this is the scary part. Don't quit, because what's going to happen is the next 15 or 20 people you call, one of them just bought a house last week and they didn't call you. It's all right. You're going to grab a hold of everything now. There shouldn't be more than 20 of them that have probably moved for every year that you've had them in your database. There's probably not more than 20 per 100 that have moved without you. And you're going to grab a hold of the database now and recapture 80% of it. Then you're going to start feeding it new every day. So that's a freebie for you that's in there. All right. Let me pause out for a second. Do you guys have any questions? Ahas? Did the information come across in a different format that's actually got you excited about lead generation, the 4-letter word lead? Guys, the relationships will be the core, and then you can still do the real estate lead stuff. But once you master this piece and you start doing, you go back to your lead stuff, the fact that you stay in touch with them and actually follow up. We hear this all the time. The key is in the follow-up. The success is in the follow-up. Once you master the follow-up with your current list, anybody new you add will be on a follow-up list. In fact, when you get 100 leads or 1,000 leads from a lead source that you might be paying for, now you want to get all 1,000 people in there and get a hold of all 1,000, because you're going to turn 1,000 sales out of those 1,000 people, knowing they're all moving. But again, internet leads are a little rare. 50% of them you'll never ever get a hold of. I mean, at least 25% of them are Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. But of the 50% that don't call you back, throw them on an all email drip plan. You got a 1% chance of converting some of them. And if there's a personal touch in there somewhere, you might just catch them on the phone one day. Once you do that and you master getting their address and their phone number, writing the notes, starting the 8x8, that's where you're going to get 6 to 8 times more business out of that. All right. Good stuff. How many of you, your brains are hurting just a little bit today? Raise your hand. No, I went easy on you. All right. A lot of people are blacked out too. Okay, guys. Well, I mean, this is the core. This is probably the simplest, easiest thing we're going to talk about. We're still going to give you all the meat stuff on seller presentations and scripts and things to help you convert and close more. But I'm telling you, this is the key to really getting to 25 to 50 and then to 100 sales a year, every year. Love spending the time with you guys. Love working with you. Thank you all so much for being here. Hi, Julia. Yeah, that's okay. No, that's okay. All right, guys, checking out. We'll see you on Friday for Spark 3. Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
I was gonna say, see ya.
All right, see ya. Spark 3. Hey, Julia, while you're on here, if you can hear me, let's check our titles on the graphic. I think they are wrong.
Yeah, I put them in the order you emailed me them. So if there's a different order you want, I need to know it.
It should just be Spark 1 through 9 and then Elements 1 through 9.
Okay, I think they were sent to me backwards, so that's why.
That could be. Okay, cool. Well, I think we got it pretty much figured out now, but we'll update our graphic maybe and put that on the rest of the stuff.
Yeah,
So
we
we'll be
can
on
change.
Spark 3 Friday.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Bye,
yeah,
guys.
I gotta make sure I hit the record button. Stop the recording. Don't lose this recording. Yes, I want to